Blackhawks, Predators, 32nd place versus 30th place. Coming up in 26 minutes. Join us on the CHGO Blackhawks pregame show next. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks pregame show. I'm Jay Zawaski with Mario Tirabassi. Sarah's here running the show ahead of the Father's Trip, Hawks and Predators. Boy, it feels like a really long time since the Hawks have played.
Really?
It does to me. It feels like forever. We did 2 in-studio shows in a row.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolute nonsense.
Classic here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it does feel like it's been a while when you have 4 games in like a 6-day span. You get used to just game going that way. But yeah, glad to be back doing another game. It's nice to have I shouldn't even do this. Is this the only road game of the month? This feels like the only road game of the month.
I don't know.
We might have 2.
I go like a week at a time.
There's a lot of home games in January. So
I live my life through a series of like watermarks on a calendar. Like, get me to the Winter Classic. Get me to the Takeover.
Get me to at a time, just
in chunks, like Anders Sorensen. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how we have to look at it. And speaking of the Blackhawks interim head coach, he spoke to the media today after the morning skate, and here's what he had to say, starting with lineup changes, this courtesy of the Chicago Blackhawks.
What can you tell us about lineup tonight?
So Bedsy goes with Frankie and Bert. Yeah, so it's the lines from practice, and the Sodi's in that.
Previer seems to be getting more and more ice time under you lately. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, we like his defensive game, right? He's been playing against some top lines and been doing a good job of him and Vlasic together, shutting them down. And also, obviously, his puck plays has improved here, so we're trusting him, and he's had a good run here.
It's got to be the tallest, longest pairing in the league. Does it help them that they both are so big and can have such a long reach?
Yes, for sure it does. Yeah, especially defensively, right? Like you can really see that they cover a lot of ice.
I guess what's the plan against Nashville tonight?
Win. No, I mean, they're playing well, but especially the start of the game here, we got to make sure we're ready off the hop here, right? Really important that we're not being sitting back. We're gonna kind of try to take it to them a little bit, get on the forecheck, especially early on here, make them play in their own zone here.
You've dialed back the morning skates. It seems like mostly optionals. What's the logic behind that?
Well, you try to get quality practice in instead. Sometimes morning skates, it's not, you just kind of go, more of a warm up, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So we want to focus on our practices instead.
Well, what have you felt like? Have you been happy with how the practices have gone? I mean, you had the 2 before this, and just in general, they seem like they're pretty up tempo.
Yeah, the last two has been good. We're trying to put them in an environment where we're battling and also working on our structure at the same time, but just getting into each other is important here.
How cool to have the fathers around, just the environment today.
Yeah, really neat, right? A lot of people that have impact on players' lives and our lives, and it's special to have them here. Yeah.
There he is, Anders Sorensen ahead of this game, and you heard it. The lines for tonight's game: Bedard, Bertuzzi, Nazar, Dickinson, Teravainen, Mikheyev, Reichel, Doc Foligno, Donato, Hall, Maroon. Your D pairs: Vlasic, Crevier, Martinez, Jones, Allen Brody, and Arvid Soderblom in goal.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm interested to see how long Frank Nazar gets a shot with Connor Bedard and Tyler Bertuzzi's gotten. I think over the last 2 games they've had some shifts together or even a period together, but love to see it for a full game and see how it goes. That's one of those things where it's just like giving some of these guys that, the future of the organization kind of rests on their shoulders, give them an opportunity, like Nazar, to play alongside Connor Bedard and play on the top line together. And they had some time to play together now in the NHL, and let that grow. See if those two can get some chemistry. I know both of them are technically centers, but maybe they aren't for their NHL career. If they play well together, maybe that's something that builds.
Yeah, I'm interested to see it. I mean, it's really probably, aside from Taylor Hall, the most offensively skilled guy that Bedard has played with. You could probably throw Tavo in there, but kind of a different kind of offensive talent. When Nazar is that speed and the snipe, where Tavo is more of a deliberate kind of a. Mm-hmm. He's not slow, but his game isn't speed. His game isn't driving. It's sort of possessing and distributing. I'm curious to see the kind of havoc these two can wreak today. I mean, they've had a couple shifts together, and there's been some good looks. That's what Sorensen said yesterday about it. So, look, man, this is where we are in the season. Right. It's about seeing young guys play together. It's about seeing what works and what doesn't. Results kind of be damned, but I'd rather see, hey, let's try something potentially exciting and fun versus something very, very safe that will keep the game close. F that. Figure it out.
Yeah, right.
Keep Taylor Hall on the fourth line until he's traded. Call it a day. I actually do like the Doc Reichel-Foligno line, too. I think that's kind of the Smith-Maroon Reichel line on steroids a little bit. You got a little more offensive talent, but you still have the defensive responsibility from the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it continues to force Lucas Reichel to still be more of the offensive threat, the offensive facilitator on that trio. But you have guys like Doc and Foligno, who I think you could say have a little bit, maybe have a little bit more than what Maroon and Smith have to offer at this stage in the game. And maybe that allows Lucas Reichel to thrive again. I would love to see that continue for him, because it was when it was clicking with him on the fourth line, it was very exciting because it felt like he was going up in that trajectory. Yeah. It kind of feels like he flattened off a little bit. He's still playing relatively well considering the season he was coming off of. So I'd like to see that continue to maybe go back in that trajectory where it like clearly points the arrow upwards.
I'm also interested in the, I know they've been together before, but Vlasic and Crevier. Crevier's really come on. I would not completely dismiss the fact that he has played so well that it got Isaac Phillips traded a little bit, because I think when we were coming into this year, and maybe for the first couple months, as you were kind of going down the depth chart of organizational defensemen, you had Isaac Phillips pretty safely ahead of Louis Crevier. They were probably right next to each other, however you want to rank it.
Right.
But I felt like Phillips had a pretty comfortable lead. And now that Crevier has played so well, he's definitely leapfrogged Phillips. And he's been in the lineup for most of the games since he's been up here, and he looks really good. He's coming along.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said to the combination of both him and Vlasic playing together. That's a lot of length on that defensive pairing to try and get through for the opposition, and I think their games pair together pretty well, and I think it allows Vlasic to try and open up a little bit more offensively, which is nice. And yeah, Crevier, he's coming in and he's played steadily, and I think his mobility is I think a little bit underrated, and they fit well together, and it causes some matchup issues for teams, because it's a lot of ground that those guys cover, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I'm happy that Crevier has been able to solidify a spot in the lineup for him, because how many times does a 7th round pick not only get to the NHL, but get to the NHL and play a considerable amount of games? Yeah,
and I don't know if in 3 or 4 years when the Hawks are contending for a playoff spot, if Louis Crevier is in the plans, but he is a guy you can certainly have playing for now until you deem Levshinov and Korchinski and all those guys full-time ready.
Until the upgrades are ready.
When I like your point, too, about maybe this allows Vlasic to be a little more offensively daring, and he mentioned that to us when he was in studio with us on Tuesday. One of the people in the chat said, "Hey, how does it feel?" I think it was Anthony Tony actually said, "How does it?" It was Dead Hawk. You're right. Said, "How does it feel to have the 4th hardest shot in the league?" He said, "It feels good, but I gotta do it more. I've got to do it more often." So Crevier, although he has shown the ability to add a little offense, that is a defense first guy, and he's going to be responsible, and he'll stay back, and that will allow a little bit of freedom to Alex Vlasic, where he doesn't necessarily have to defer the offense to Seth Jones or whoever else he might be partnered with.
Yeah, and I think it's a guy that I feel like they play well off of each other, their games, and at this point, defensively, I think you're just kind of looking for those complementary pairings together. I think you have Martinez and Jones together. I think that's two veterans that I think know how to play well off of each other's games. Jones is still going to be the guy that I think is tasked with a little bit more of the offensive threat in that group. Then you have Allen and Brody, which I think analytically has been probably one of the worst defensive pairs in the league.
Yep.
But I think that is you're pairing a guy who's a rookie with a guy who is clearly fallen off a cliff from his game. So that's kind of where you're at with that. But I think the arrow,
Kevin Korchinski and Jared Tenorti.
Yeah, the arrow can point upwards for Nolan Allen moving on from here. And it's just kind of the situation you're in with the roster. But I think, I think those are guys that their games complement each other in a way that they should be better in transition and be able to defend and stop plays. Like that's their main goal.
Did you see the post the Blackhawks put out today? I'm trying to find it exactly. I don't know if I'll be able to find it in time, but it was basically like Nolan Allen making some noise among rookies. He has the second most points of rookie defensemen.
Really?
I think that's true. Yes.
Rookie behind Lane Hudson is
I would-
Nolan Allen.
I think that's what I believe. That's what I believe the graphic said. I'm trying to go through.
Come on, that can't be true.
I mean,
I know there's probably not that many rookie defensemen in the NHL at a time, but to go from 1 to 2 to be Lane Hudson to Nolan Allen, that is such a drop off.
I know. And why is it so hard to find this stat?
It shouldn't be.
Rookie
Just go to
scoring leaders.
NHL stats sort by rookies defensemen.
You'd think it would be there, but guess what?
Why don't you tell the people about your gigantic Ed Belfour
there's rookies.
decoration? And
Yeah.
I'll find the stat.
So my buddy Pete Farrell made this Eddie Belfour sculpture. He is a guy I grew up with, and he is a massive Blackhawks fan, always has been. And he also, from a young age, was very into like theater makeup. So he would always put like a wound on his brother Charlie's ribs, and Charlie would come to my house and be like, "Oh, Mrs. Z, I fell off my bike," and lift up his shirt and there'd be a fake bone and fake pus and fake blood coming out. Well, Pete eventually parlayed that into a career in Hollywood.
Wow.
And was a Hollywood makeup artist. He toured with Rob Zombie, did all the makeup for the Rob Zombie tour. He made The Thing and the Fantastic Four, that entire costume.
Oh, nice.
Made by him. And his most famous work of art, and I verified this with him today to make sure it wasn't just an urban legend, he made Mark Wahlberg's prosthetic
Thing.
member in Boogie Nights. Yes. So that is not
That's
really
awesome.
Mark Wahlberg, unfortunately for Mark, but that is the work of my buddy Pete Farrell.
That is fine craftsmanship.
We just threw the link to his Instagram shop. If you'd like to commission something like this, it's Instagram. It's just the PCC Workshop on Instagram, PCC Workshop. He sold one to former NHL goalie Pat Jablonski of himself.
That's cool.
So yeah, he carved this. I believe it's clay. I got to get exactly what it's made out of.
It's heavy.
But he has been doing this stuff since he was a kid, and yeah, he's made it a career. So it's very, very cool. And yeah, if you want to see it, PCC Workshop. There's a bunch of other stuff he's done on his page, like Halloween costumes he's made for friends and family, and all those sort of things. So yeah, it's very, very cool. This Eddie Belfour bus that he shipped to us from LA. Very cool. And Eddie the Eagle
awesome.
in the chat
There he is.
saying hi.
Thanks, Eddie.
I gotta talk to Pete and see if he'd like us to somehow get this signed for him. I'm sure we could probably find a way to get this
It's
in front of
possible.
Eddie and get it signed.
That'd be sweet.
But it's really cool, and it doesn't really show here. Maybe I'll take some pictures.
It's
Very detailed in the face and everything.
the mask is accurate. Yeah.
In the back, you could see the hair and everything. It's very, very cool.
Very cool. It's huge. Probably this has got to be one of the biggest set pieces we have.
I would say so, yeah. And it looks good on the screen. So thanks to Pete for sending it out here. I know it cost him a pretty penny to get it to us safely from LA. So we're going to have it on set pretty often here. So yeah, PCC Workshop on Instagram is the place to find it.
Nolan Allen sure is second in rookie defenseman scoring with 8 points. only behind Lane Hudson with 35.
He's got some work to do, but I have confidence that he will get it done.
Yeah, he'll close the gap. Well, hey, good for Nolan Allen to be second in rookie scoring amongst defensemen this year. Quite the illustrious class to be part of, but good for him. I mean, it's again, I go back to this is a guy that I think a lot of us thought he would get a second year in Rockford this year, and has been on the roster since day one of the regular season and still here. And he's still learning, still growing. I think this is a season where he's getting those NHL growing pains out of his system, and you can build off it from there. And a guy like Kevin Korchinski went through NHL growing pains, and now he's building off of that and building up in the AHL. Like it's good. It's good. It's good for him. I think it's analytically not looking great, but I think on this team with this group, with what he's being tasked to do, like it's far from feeling like he is completely out of place or anything like that.
Well, he does. So if you go to hockeystatcards.com, he does have the lowest average game score. So he's averaging like a minus 0.78, but he is typically, as you mentioned, paired with the lesser veteran. Mm-hmm. And he also doesn't put up a lot of points despite being second rookie scoring among defensemen. And those game scores are highly weighted by production.
Right.
Like the highest game score is almost always the guy who had the most points, because it's not just weighing the analytics, it's also weighing the production. So he will always be at the bottom end of those until his offensive game comes around. And I think it's there. He has shown more of a willingness to go deep, to take some risks, especially under Sorensen. He kind of has gotten that green light.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the way he's played. I have no complaints. And you talk about the eye test, which is important. He passes the eye test when he's on the ice. He looks like a guy you don't need to worry about. Mm-hmm. Not perfect, not flawless, but he holds his own out there. The other thing we need to talk about too is, and I think some people had hope, I never thought it was going to happen. Seth Jones is in the lineup with Alec Martinez. Not a surprise at all to me. I'm really, really curious to see what his game's going to look like. We saw him at practice yesterday. He was practicing at a higher level than we'd seen. The whole team was, really. It has been a couple days of intense practices, but I think Seth Jones was embarrassed by his performance, and I think he wants to make good on it. We'll see. If he doesn't have a better game and he's losing battles in front of the net and all those sort of things, then we got a real problem on our hand.
Yeah, I think this is it's if the last game wasn't benchable, then you really have to follow it up with a solid performance. Like, not even just like it wasn't so great. Like, it's got to be like, no, you switch it around, and maybe that's the messaging. Maybe it backfires because he starts trying too hard. I don't know, but it's definitely. It seems like his game is, since he's come back from the injury, is not been good. He says he's healthy, so he's completely fine.
There's no way he's completely healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy.
Well, okay. So no one at this point in the league.
No, I know, but even beyond typical
healthy enough to where he says
service.
Nothing is bothering him. So I mean, that's different for that's different for NHL players than it is for normal people. But I mean, he's in Nashville, a team that drafted him 4th overall 12 years ago, and I don't know if that does anything for him, but got the father's trip going on. Like, there's some things that could maybe play into him having a bounce back, which I think would be good for him, would be good for this team, because if he plays well, this team more often than not has a better game.
Well, the rumors are starting to come out with him. I mean, he's ending up on trade big boards. I saw that who was talking about him today? Darren Dreger was talking about him today, and I want to thank our pal Wally Masaryk for tweeting this out on Insider Trading. Darren Dreger says it's not like Kyle Davidson and the Blackhawks are shopping the defenseman. He's got a pile of years left at 9.5. His contract doesn't expire until 2029-30, and he has a full no move clause across the board. But look, he's a quality defenseman. Yes, teams are calling, and they're asking about Seth Jones's availability. It's going to have to be something that we continue to watch as Kyle Davidson puts his stamp on this rebuild. Look, I'll talk about myself, consistently called a Seth Jones apologist and a fanboy because I just don't think he's useless. But if they can find a taker for Seth Jones, even if you got to eat half of it, I think you do it. I think you do it for the sake of him. I think you do it for the sake of the roster spot. I don't see it getting significantly better with him here because I do think by the time the Hawks are actually willing or ready to win, the production will drop off significantly for Seth at that age.
Yeah.
So if someone's willing to take that, and I forget who said it earlier, if they're gonna get Seth Jones for half price, you're gonna get a decent asset back for that. It's not just a salary dump.
Yeah, you hope. I wouldn't. I'm fascinated to see what any kind of trade involving him would look like, given the term and the amount of money. I don't know. It seems like your best asset in that situation, because it feels like the Blackhawks don't have any leverage in that deal. If they're trying to move Seth Jones, no team is just going to be like, oh, here's a first round pick and a top prospect for him, because he's not worth that. Not for
$9.5 million.
Right.
But if you're getting him for half price, if you're getting Seth Jones for $4.5 million or $5 million, you're going to have to pay for that. That's going to cost you.
Yeah.
That's not going to be, because Seth Jones, despite what 99.9% of Hawks fans believe, is still a quality NHL player with value, especially if you put him on a contender that has a better, deeper defensive roster where he's not going to have to play 24, 25, 26 minutes a night and can just do the things he's great at. You're going to have to give up something for that. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be Elias Pettersson or a first-round pick or something, but you're going to get something. You're going to get something of value back if you're eating half that contract. Someone in the show yesterday was like, would you trade him for Darnell Nurse? No. I don't know what that does. You're basically just taking one problem for another.
Yeah, it doesn't really do anything to help you.
Right.
Because Nurse is a huge cap hit with the same kind of, plays big minutes, but has flaws. So you're just, take all the things said about Seth Jones, take out his name, throw in Darnell Nurse's name. That's really all you're doing. You're not really improving the team.
And then Darnell Nurse will be the new person everybody hates here.
And you're not changing anything up. If Seth wants to move on with an opportunity to play in a team that's going to be in win now mode, which it seems like he really, really, really wants to do, I'm not going to fault him for that. I think if the Blackhawks are eating that much money, you're really going to have to make it worthwhile in the return, because that's $4.5 million on your books for 5 years for a guy that's not that's a lot to have on you, especially even with the cap going up and everything. Like that's a big thing. So if an acquiring team is really digging in for that, then they're gonna it's gonna have to it's really gonna have to cost them. So if I'll believe it if I see it, but I don't. I'm not gonna blame him if he's saying like, yeah, I want to go to a winner now, because going off of his words at the end of the season, I think he wanted this team to be much better now, and he was brought here with the idea that the team was going to be much better immediately with him on it, and it's not been close to that since he's been here.
Well, so just to clarify where I'm coming from, if you trade him and you have to eat half the salary, I want a significant something back for it.
Yeah.
A first, a really high prospect, something like that. I'm not just moving him. I'm not moving out and paying him $4.5 million not to be here for 5 years just to get rid of him.
Right.
That's dumb. That doesn't do anything except make your team worse. Right. So if someone wants to take the whole contract and not give you much back, I'm down with that. If someone wants to take Seth Jones and half the contract and a significant prospect back, I'm down with that. But I'm not just giving you Seth Jones at half price for nothing.
Right.
That would be asset mismanagement for Kyle Davidson, especially now where you'd imagine his value is lower than it's been in a while. But if teams are calling, these GMs know the cap hit. They know that they're going to have to ask the Hawks to take on some money. So if these calls are happening, it's interesting. I don't know. It's something I didn't think would ever happen this soon, but here we are.
Yep.
All right. Hawks and Preds going to drop the puck here in a minute. Lebowski 5 says, is that an Eddie the Eagle simulacrum? I've never heard that word in my life.
I've never heard that word either.
Simulacrum? I looked it up, and it is basically like a sculpture. So, yes, that's what it is.
Cool.
I mentioned it earlier. PCC Workshop is the Instagram account. My buddy Pete Farrell put that together and shipped it to us. So you'll see that on the app pretty often, on the set pretty often. So, yeah, go check out his work. And if you want to order something like this, hit him up and he'll get it done. He's done a lot of stuff like this. So very, very cool. Awesome. All right, we're going to wrap things up. Puck's about to drop. We'll talk to you during the post-game show. We'll see you then right here on the CHGO Blackhawks post-game podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.